A fortified city. This is how a Portuguese traveler, Domingo Pais, described Hampi in the 16th century. At the entrance of the gate where those pass who come from Goa, this king has made within it a very strong city fortified with walls and towers. These walls are not like those of other cities, but are made of very strong masonry such as would be found in few other parts, and inside very beautiful rows of buildings made after their manner with flat roofs. Why do you think the city was fortified? A gateway to the west. Surat. Surat in Gujarat was the emporium of western trade during the Mughal period along with Cambay, present day Khambat, and somewhat later Ahmedabad. Surat was the gateway for trade with West Asia via the Gulf of Hormuz. Surat has also been called the gate of Mecca because many pilgrim ships set sail from here. The city was cosmopolitan and people of all castes and creeds lived there. In the 17th century, the Portuguese, Dutch, and English had their factories and warehouses at Surat. According to the English chronicler Ovington, who wrote an account of the port in 1869, on average 100 ships of different countries could be found anchored at the port of any given time. There were also several retail and wholesale shops selling cotton textiles. The textiles of Surat were famous for the gold lace borders, zari, and had a market in West Asia, Africa, and Europe. The state built numerous rest houses to take care of the needs of people from all over the world who came to the city. There were magnificent buildings and innumerable pleasure parks. The Kathiawar Sets or Mahajanas, money changers, and huge banking houses at Surat. It is noteworthy that the Surat Hundis were honored in the far off markets of Cairo in Egypt, Basra in Iraq, and Antwerp in Belgium, and Antwerp in Belgium. However, Surat began to decline towards the end of the 17th century. This was because of many factors: the loss of markets and productivity because of the decline of the Mughal Empire, control of the sea routes by the Portuguese, and competition from Bombay, present day Mumbai, where the English East India Company shifted its headquarters in 1668. Today, Surat is bustling commercial center. Emporium, a place where goods from diverse production centers are bought and sold. Hundi. Hundi is a note recording a deposit made by a person. The amount deposited can be claimed in another place by presenting the record of the deposit. Fishing in troubled waters. Masulipatnam. The town of Masulipatnam or Machilipatnam, literally fish port town, lay on the delta of the Krishna River. In the 17th century, it was a center of intense activity. Both the Dutch and English East India Companies attempted to control Masulipatnam as it became the most important port on the Andhra coast. The fort and Masulipatnam was built by the Dutch. The Qutb Shahi rulers of Golconda imposed royal monopolies on the sale of textiles, spices, and other items to prevent the trade passing completely into the hands of the various East India companies. Fierce competition among various trading groups, the Golconda nobles, Persian merchants, Telugu Komati, Chetis, and European traders made the city populous and prosperous. As the Mughals began to extend their power to Golconda, their representative, the governor Mir Jumla, who was also a merchant, began to play off the Dutch and the English against each other. In 1686-87, Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb annexed Golconda. This caused the European companies to look for alternatives. It was a part of it was a part of the new policy of the English East India Company that it was not enough if a port had connections with the production centers of the hinterland. The new company trade centers, it was felt, should combine political, administrative, and commercial roles. As the company traders moved to Bombay, Calcutta, present day Kolkata, and Madras, present day Chennai, Masulipatam lost both its merchants and prosperity and declined in the course of the 18th century, being today nothing more than a dilapidated little town. A dilapidated little town. New towns and traders. In the 16th and 17th centuries, European countries were searching for spices and textiles, which had became which had become popular both in Europe and West Asia. The English, Dutch, and French formed East India companies in order to expand their commercial activities in the East. Initially, great Indian traders like Mullah Abdul Ghaffar and Virji Vora, who owned a large number of ships, competed with them. However, the European companies used their naval power to gain control of the sea trade and forced Indian traders to work as their agents. Ultimately, the English emerged as the most successful commercial and political power in the subcontinent. The spurt in demand for goods like textiles led to a great expansion of the crafts of spinning, weaving, bleaching, dyeing, etc., with more and more people taking them up. Indian textile designs became increasingly refined. However, this period also saw the decline of the independence of craftspersons. They now began to work on a system of advances, which meant that they had to weave cloth which was already promised to European agents. Weavers no longer had the liberty of selling their own cloth or weaving their own patterns. They had to reproduce the designs supplied to them by the company agents. The 18th century saw the rise of Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras, which are nodal cities today. Crafts and commerce underwent major changes as merchants and artisans, such as weavers, were moved into the black towns established by the European companies within these new cities. The blacks or native traders and craftspersons were confined here while the white rulers occupied the superior residencies of Fort St. George in Madras or Fort St. William in Calcutta. The story of crafts and commerce in the 18th century will be taken up next year. Vasco da Gama and Christopher Columbus. In the 15th century, European sailors undertook unprecedented explorations of sea routes. They were driven by the desire to find a way of reaching the Indian subcontinent and obtaining spices. Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese sailor, sailed down the African coast, went round the Cape of Good Hope, and crossed over to the Indian Ocean. His first journey took more than a year. He reached Calicut in 1498 and returned to Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. The following year, he lost two of his four ships, and of the 170 men at the start of the journey, only 54 survived. In spite of the obvious hazards, the routes that were opened up proved to be extremely profitable, and he was followed by English, Dutch, and French sailors. The search for sea routes to India had another unexpected fallout. On the assumption that the earth was round, Christopher Columbus, an Italian, decided to sail westwards across the Atlantic Ocean to find a route to India. He landed in the West Indies, which got their name because of this confusion. in 1492. He was followed by sailors and conquerors from Spain and Portugal, who occupied large parts of Central and South America, often destroying earlier settlements in the area.